It's a really big day in hands. Yes, you heard me right. Hands. You know, 4 fingers, the thumb, hands. More on that on episode 10 of The Chris Rennie Show. As well as conversations containing the best miracles in sports history, because a special anniversary happened over this weekend. Then we'll talk about my great success getting into boxing and those conversations, as well as some spring training MLB predictions for the entire season, and just some other news in sports. Thank you all for coming today, and hopefully you enjoy the show. I can't do this anymore. What's this guy saying? Who gave these national radio hosts these jobs? Jeez. Can't even understand that guy. What's he even talking about? I can't take it anymore. Those national media personalities making you feel like that, make a change. Listen to this idiot about the sports that matter from the opinion that matters. Haha, you said it, not me. Now for today's takes from the most opinionated host in sports talk. What it do, baby? It's your host, Chris Rennie here. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChrisRennieCFB. That's for college football, because that's my favorite sport. Unapologetically. Debating on changing it to Chris R Sports, but we'll see how this goes. It's the Chris Rennie Show, and this is episode 10. Welcome in. Your host is ready to go. On the last episode, we got deep into the Astros cheating scandal, but on this episode, we're going to start off with a more positive note. I've got a story for the ages. A story this generation might not be familiar with, but first, we're going to start off with my top 5 sports miracles of all time. You know, last weekend there was an anniversary, and we're going to get to it in this list. And it was a powerful anniversary. 40 years. You know, a country, a very powerful one, was still in existence at the time. And it took a wily group of college kids to take him down. If you don't understand what I'm hinting at, you'll find out soon. But we're going to get started with my top 5 miracles in sports, because I think that would be a fun activity. And in a way, you can call this one for the ages? Question mark? A show that never came to fruition, but I'm going to use the idea to do this list. So today, the 5th best miracle in my eyes in sports history was one I wasn't even alive for. But the story lives on through generations of fans that I hate, but I just cannot quit respecting this play. So in the 1972 AFC playoffs, the Oakland Raiders took a 7-6 lead over the gross Steel Town Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers at this time were led by Terry Bradshaw and a group of tons of Hall of Famers. Like so many Hall of Famers. And they went down to this Raiders team 7-6. As I already said. And when you look at this play and you see the highlights, you know, the reception itself might be seen as immaculate. 1972 AFC Divisional Playoffs, immaculate reception. You guys know what I'm getting at. The immaculate reception. And once these Oakland Raiders, coached by John Madden. You guys might know him from the video game, but he used to be a really good football coach. And Chuck Noll, one of the greatest coaches to ever grace the sideline. It's a very controversial play. The play was selected as the greatest play in NFL history, and it was miraculous. It was immaculate. The play was a turning point for the Steelers, and it reversed 4 decades of futility with their first playoff win ever. And they went on to win 4 Super Bowls by the end of the 70s. This is what created the Steelers, this play. So this play took place wild. So Hall of Fame quarterback Ken Stabler scored a touchdown on a 30-yard run with 1:17 left in the game. The Pittsburgh Steelers trailed the Oakland Raiders 7-6, facing 4th and 10 on their own 40-yard line with 22 seconds remaining in the game and no timeouts. Head coach Chuck Noll called the pass. 66 circle option. The story's as old as time with 66 circle option. I don't know. I'm not the coach. I'm not Chuck Noll. But Steelers quarterback Terry Bradshaw, under great pressure from Raiders linemen Tony Klein and Horace Jones, threw the ball to the Raiders' 35-yard line towards halfback John Frenchie Fakua. Raiders safety Jack Tatum collided with Fakua just as the ball arrived, breaking it up. And if you guys have seen the video, it's pretty sensational. Steelers fullback Franco Harris, one of the greatest to ever do it, after initially blocking on the play, had run downfield in case Bradshaw needed another eligible receiver, which, if you know the result of the play, they did. And he scooped up the ball that was popped up into the air before it would have hit the ground and ran past Raiders linebacker Gerald Irons. Harris used a stiff arm to ward off Raiders defensive back Jimmy Warren and went in for a touchdown. The touchdown gave the Steelers a 13-7 lead, which ended up being the final score. So here is the call.
Last chance for the Steelers. Bradshaw trying to get away. And his pass ends. Broken up by Tatum. Tipped off. Franco Harris has it. And he's over. Franco Harris. Grabbed the ball on the deflection. 5 seconds to go. He grabbed it with 5 seconds to go and scored.
You could tell by the way the crowd reacted that this was just different. You know, it was one of those plays that, you know, Hall of Famer Jack Tatum comes in, he breaks up the pass, but the ball just bounces. And, you know, in sports, miracles happen, and this is one of those examples. Some would say it wasn't just a miracle, but it was immaculate. Now, number 4 on the list, James Buster Douglas defeats Iron Mike Tyson. This story comes with a very, very common theme in film and in movies and in Hollywood and on television and anywhere there's entertainment, Bollywood even, Japan, China, all of them. I should have ended on Japan because this is where this took place, in Tokyo. This story starts with James Buster Douglas. He was an inconsistent heavyweight and was going through the most trying time in his life. His mother had died 3 weeks before the bout. His partner was battling a rare kidney disease, a kidney ailment. And on top of all that, the day before the fight, he contracted the flu. This fight was going to be a blowout. So much so that the announcers for HBO compared him to frozen tuna. There was so little interest in this fight that they compared the fighters to their dogs. Mike Tyson, his white pit bull, and James Buster Douglas, his little beagle. At this point in time, Tyson was still unbeaten. There was a lot of drama with his promoter, his famous promoter. We all know his promoter. And his coach. So, you know, his longtime manager, Bill Caden, and promoter Don King had disputes over contracts. He departed from his longtime trainer, Kevin Rooney. And his relationship was all over the news with Robin Givens. Everything was bad, and he just needed one more fight. This was a warm-up fight before he was supposed to take on Evander Holyfield. On the other side, James Buster Douglas was the number 7 rated heavyweight by Ring Magazine. And he was going up against the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter at the time. And now Mike Tyson, who was a little short for a heavyweight, was still ready to go. Many say he claimed to not take this fight serious enough. And that is why flu-ridden, emotionally damaged, inconsistent James Buster Douglas from Columbus, Ohio, was able to utilize his size and length to make Tyson uncomfortable. And using his athleticism, it allowed him to maintain his range and wear down the heavyweight. Using a stiff jab, he put him down in the 10th round, and the world stood still as the baddest man on the planet was just like the rest of us. This knockdown human being, this man who had to overcome so many obstacles to take on an even bigger obstacle physically than the flu. If you've ever had the flu, you know how hard it can be to function. But this shows that there is higher powers in a way. He lost his mom, his partner, his girlfriend/wife, I'm not 100% sure on the relationship at the time, was fighting for her life as well. James Buster Douglas had been on a 6-fight winning streak and ended up getting the World Boxing Championship belt. That's absurd. And he did it by taking down a guy that many people called unbeatable. And this changed the trajectory of Mike Tyson's career. And in Tokyo, many people did not watch the fight live and paid for it. And it was aired, and then Tyson lost. And that is what happened. A 42-1 underdog reached the pinnacle. Weeks after his lowest moment, he was at an all-time high in the boxing world. And that is one of the greatest upsets in sports, which means it's one of the greatest miracles. James Buster Douglas knocks down Tyson. Down goes Tyson. Down goes Tyson. Here's the call.
Just another day at work for Mike Tyson. He looks almost bored as they call to the center of the ring by the referee. The stage is set. We're set to go. Bob Sheridan here. You see Mike Tyson in the black trunks traditional and Buster Douglas.
Honestly, Rocky was a worse movie than this story. What the heck? James Buster Douglas. I keep calling him George. James came in. No one gave him a shot. The announcers came in. Oh, Mike looks bored. This is going to be a boring fight. Just another day at the office. Then boom, 10th round. James Buster Douglas. Down goes Tyson. I was getting so freaking jacked up watching that fight right there. The little clip that I had recorded. I wish I had a YouTube. We need to get on to that. I'm just not very good at the whole video thing. That's why I do a podcast. But that doesn't take away from the miracle that was Buster Douglas shocking the world in Tokyo. Number 3 on the list. Blocked by James. This was a miracle for different reasons. This wasn't a traditional one-off. This was a 7-game series. And in this 7-game series, my favorite team and my favorite athlete, LeBron James, were down 3-1 to the formidable 73-9 Golden State Warriors. And after 2 great performances, the Cavs had the Warriors reeling. After going down 3-1, it took 2 back-to-back insane games from LeBron. And in Game 6, Kyrie Irving and LeBron both went for 41 points. In this game, the LeBron-led Cavs were tied. The game had been scoreless, and I remember sitting in my in the TV room at my dad's house watching this game and just being so stressed. It was so hard to sit there with this game being tied, knowing that any shot could make the difference, and knowing that just as likely the other team could hit that shot, and then this fast break happens. And we're going to do the call right now for Mike Breen.
The offense is running from Leland. Irving drives, hot step inside, pulls out, misses. Rebound taken by Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rebound.
It was 89-89 with a minute left. Minute 42 left. The shot's blocked. You know, you got to give credit to everybody on this play, and I just remember seeing everyone talk about it. LeBron, a flash of black in the all-black sleeve jerseys, flies from half court after the outlet is made, and the pass is back to Iguodala. J.R. Smith got in perfect position and gave LeBron just that extra tenth of a second to get there, and he pinned Iguodala on the backboard. His greatest play. I've never seen an athlete jump so high, run so far in such little time. When you're watching that live, I remember it so vividly. I'm like, oh, F, this is over. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, blocked by James. And it was one of those superhero moments in sports. And on this list, this is the one that means the most to me. So on my list, this is number one. And then Kyrie Irving goes and hits the shot. And then they're up 3. And then LeBron almost ends the world with a dunk. And Kevin Love goes and gets a stop on the final 3-pointer, and that I changed the order up on those last two. I'm just really excited. I get juiced up rewatching that play. It was, it ranks 1 on my sports memory list for sure. I just can't, being in that room with my brothers and my dad and seeing the blocked shot and then seeing the shot and us just jumping up and celebrating, then calming down and being like, man, this is it. This is what it feels like. This is what a professional sports championship feels like. Because I'm a Cleveland sports fan. They haven't happened much in my life. This is the first one. Ohio State had won 2 in my life when I was too young to remember. But this one, all those years in LeBron, all those years defending him before he got his first, and him leaving to get his first, that hurt. And I can't tell you how much this championship meant to everyone I know who was a Cleveland fan, everyone from Ohio, and everyone in Cleveland. It was sensational. It was a miracle. It really was. And you have the greatest athlete in sports at the time, and to call that a miracle, it's absurd. But it really was, and it meant so much. Number 2, Hail Flutie, the miracle in Miami. So, when I was younger, the NCAA football video games used to have this feature. And this feature sort of allowed you to relive some of the moments, the greatest moments in college football history. They had the 1980 Holiday Bowl, which just missed the cut because it didn't have that place close to my heart. But when you go back and look at Hail Flutie, it was a game that had so much on the line. This was a year where the Miami Hurricane dynasty was sort of falling back a little bit. They had a young Jimmy Johnson. They had a young Bernie Kosar at the helm playing quarterback. And there were tons of records broken. This was one of those games that wouldn't be a surprise in today's college football, but at the time, 47-45, the final score was insane. So Boston College traveled south. It was a very hot game. It was a very steamy game. And Boston College got up to an early 14-0 lead. And then the offense just came rolling. And then going into the end of this game, Boston College trailed 45-41. It took them 3 plays from their own 20-yard line to get to the Hurricanes' 48-yard line. And this is where it happened. Flutie called it the 55 flood tip play, which the receivers were going to run straight routes into the end zone when they were to tip the football to another receiver. So when you're teaching a Hail Mary, there's 2 ways this goes. You get 3 rows, and you want to either hit the middle guy and have a guy behind for a tip that goes behind or a tip that goes forward. So you have those three guys, and you have a third guy usually running across the formation to get any other random tips. He sort of sees the flight of the ball and finds his place in that formation. This one followed that, and there was so much that went into this. And when you rewatch this highlight, which I'm going to play right now, and you guys should play too, I mean, you're going to hear it, and you guys are going to be taken to the moment.
Wireless companies.
And it's going to be sensational. And some wireless companies are going to enjoy watching this too.
Wide receivers out to the right. Flutie flushed. Throws it down. Caught by Boston College. I don't believe it. It's a touchdown. The Eagles win it. Unbelievable. I don't believe it. Phelan is at the bottom of that pile. Here comes the Boston College team. He threw it into the end zone. There was no time left on the clock. The ball went between two defensive backs of Miami.
I was like a 7-8-year-old kid, and I can tell you that I recreated that play in my head in the backyard 1,000 times. This game was over. The Miami Dynasty was getting its footing back, and Flutie ran around and flung the ball 60-plus yards in the air to receiver Gerard Phelan, who got behind the entire defense, caught the ball, fell to his knees in the end zone. It was by far the most miraculous thought to me that could happen, and I remember one day I was just watching, it was on CBS Sports Classic, an old channel, I don't know if it still exists, but it was a DirecTV channel, and I was just watching it. It might have been on ESPN Classic, either one. It was on one of those classic channels, and the game was playing, and I was watching it with my dad, who just let it run usually, and I was watching it, and all of a sudden, the game broadcast was not the same. You didn't get to see the clock all the time. You didn't get to see all the score all the time. So, being a young kid who had only seen games with a modern display on it, I was confused. And then all of a sudden, this play happens. And it's like, Doug Flutie to the end zone, Phelan falls to his knees, he catches it. And all that. And it is just one of those plays that you try to recreate. High schools, that happens so rarely that it works, and this play is one of the plays that truly made me love college football, and it was truly a miracle. Doug Flutie went on to win the Heisman. Boston College had one of their most successful seasons in their program's history, and it was capped off and will always be remembered because of this play. A pocket-sized quarterback that he went under-recruited. A lot of people said he was too small to play the position. His local Boston College gave him a shot. And this is what happens when you give the underdog a chance. Miracles. The number one miracle in sports history on my list. And I saw someone saying, well, it wasn't really a miracle on Twitter. And I said, you know what, sir, you're stupid. This is the greatest event in American Olympic history. It happened 40 years ago this past weekend on Saturday. During the 1980 Olympic Games, a ragtag group of college kids took on the greatest hockey team ever assembled, the Soviet Union. And absolutely nobody gave them a shot. So over a 20-year period leading up to this game, the United States were outscored by those commies 29-7. And University of Minnesota coach Herb Brooks said no more. Per usual, Olympic tryouts were held specifically to unseat these Soviets and medal at these Olympic Games. So a group of 68 athletes entered, all of which were put through a massive 300-question psychological exam. Those who didn't take it or did not finish it were already cut. And of the 20 who ended up making the team, 9 already played for Herb Brooks at the University of Minnesota, a hockey powerhouse. Because in the United States, at that time, professional athletes were not allowed to compete for the U.S. Olympic teams. And with those 9 players, 4 played for Minnesota's fiercest rival at the time, Boston University. All while this is going on, the Ruskies are going on this little USSR tour across the United States. They beat NHL teams 5 times. They lost 3 games and won one of those games in overtime. And to cap all this off, they beat the NHL All-Star team 6-0. So this all culminated in a final exhibition game where the Soviets destroyed the United States 10-3. The famous Soviet coach at the time said this was the worst thing that could have happened because going into the Olympics, it led to his team underestimating a very passionate group of hockey players. And he knew Herb Brooks, and he knew what Herb Brooks was going to get these guys capable of. And now both teams went into this tournament with different mindsets. The Soviets were very confident. As always overconfident, the Soviets, with their steroids and HGH. We've all seen Ivan Drago. And the Americans are trying to find some self-belief. So at the start of this tournament, the United States drew in their first game, and then they went on to win 4 straight and advanced to the medal rounds. Because in the Olympics at the time, they didn't have their traditional single elimination format. It was round robin. So on the other side, the Soviets had won games by scores like 17-0. That's real life. They beat the Japanese by 17 goals to 0. So a lot of people believed this game was live when it was broadcasted originally, but it was tape delayed. And the game itself was just the beginning of this amazing story in sports. So Herb Brooks delivered one of the greatest speeches in sports history, and Kurt Russell has been the one everyone remembers. And in this speech, he said, you got one shot, you got one game, and this team could beat you 9 out of 10 times. But tonight, we're going to have that one. And on that winter day in Lake Placid, New York, the Americans rejoiced. Us Americans were better than the Soviets. And American superiority was truly shown. And after one period of the game, it was tied at 2. And then the Soviets went up 3-2. And while the rest of the world said, well, this game's over, the Americans did not back down. Jim Craig made 36 saves that night and continued. And the Soviets fell apart because the United States captain, Mike Eruzione, sent a shot past a screened Soviet keeper. The United States were up, and then the famous call happened. I'm starting the video with 15 seconds to go in the game.
The planet hand is there. The puck is still loose. 11 seconds. You've got 10 seconds. The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Schultz. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
Do you believe in miracles? It'll be a miracle if this show gets over 100 downloads, and I do believe in miracles. But one of the best jobs done by a broadcaster, letting the moment shine and letting his final words be, do you believe in miracles? Yes. I mean, man, that moment gives you chills. That moment gives you that feeling of, man, sports truly are powerful. And, when you truly believe in yourself, anything is possible. And that's what these miracles are for. That is why this weekend I sort of felt this urge to talk about my favorite miracles. And I hope you guys enjoyed that segment. It was a long one. But, man, those top 5 sports miracles, those are the reasons you love sports. Those are the reasons you watch them. There's so many. From the Music City Miracle to Adam Vinatieri's kick in the snow, to, Holy Buckeye for me when Ohio State did that against Purdue. I've watched that highlight so many times in my life. And, that play, the kick 6, there's so many of these moments. Michael Jordan's shot, Jordan over Elo. I mean, it's where time stands still, truly. And that's what makes these plays special. There are moments that are frozen in time. When you watch and hear the broadcast, you're taken back. I wasn't alive in 1980 when the Miracle on Ice happened, but I've watched the highlights, and I've seen old footage of that game, and when you're watching it, it takes you back to that moment. And that's what miracles truly do in sports. And that's why these plays are truly special. So this weekend there was an interesting fight. Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. And I did a Twitter poll, and 60% of people said Deontay Wilder was going to win the fight. And everyone I talked to was like, that Deontay Wilder guy punches pretty hard. And I said, yeah, he punches hard. I said it, but the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. And I've been in an argument with my girlfriend on if I can say that or not, but it's self-proclaimed. It is what the announcers call him, and it has become a pretty well-accepted nickname, so I'm going to roll with it. The Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, came into the fight 20 pounds heavier than the last fight. Deontay Wilder said he had pillow fists, and those pillow fists made Deontay Wilder's eardrums bleed. The man licked the blood off his rival, his opponent. What type of guy does that? A champion, that's who. If you're not willing to lick the blood off your opponent in a match, in a fight, in a bout, are you really even a champion? That's a question I'm asking you guys. Is it weird? Absolutely. But man, he's crazy. He got brought in on a freaking throne with a crown. He was a king, literally. It was his night. It really was. But I really just want to say this. I know there's a lot of people who talk about boxing, and I know so many professional analysts did not pick Fury. And me, a non-professional, off a gut feeling, off of just watching highlights, put together, I was like, what, Tyson Fury, this guy beat Vladimir Klitschko? Like the greatest heavyweight to ever do it? He was like 83-0 Klitschko. Fury has a resume like no other. He battled mental health issues. He gained like 70 pounds. He beat obesity. So, to quote The Office, when D'Angelo took over for Michael Scott, once you could beat obesity, you could take on anything. And that's not why I picked Tyson Fury. I picked Tyson Fury because of exactly why he won. He was more technically sound. He was more prepared. He seemed calmer. He seemed more collected. His game plan was very well thought out. The moves he made to get to that point were also very well thought out. He moved on from his longtime trainer to do it. And, at the end of the day, when it comes to boxing, it is about how well you prepare. And Tyson Fury wasn't tired. He was in shape. He put on weight and maintained his stamina. One person, I can't remember who it was one of the boxing analysts for ESPN, said, when he got knocked down in that 12th round and started pushing forward, you sort of saw a change. And when it was called a draw, this time around, you thought Fury had a strategy. And this is what his old trainer said. This is what a lot of analysts said. And he stuck with that strategy, popped his eardrum, and Deontay Wilder was not the same fighter. And one crazy aspect of boxing is I don't know how someone could watch that fight, see Deontay Wilder get beat in every single facet of the fight and be like, yeah, Deontay Wilder's still better. Because I saw that all over Twitter. No, he's not better. He might have a better strong left hand. He's a very, very powerful boxer. But I said it myself. If he was going to knock out Tyson Fury, it would have happened in the last fight. Not when Fury was 20 pounds heavier. Now, a lot of people said Fury might win this, but if he wins it, it's going to be a full-length fight and so on. It wasn't. It was a TKO. Wilder was looking so bad, his corner threw in the towel. And to his trainer, who said Deontay's a fighter, he probably shouldn't have thrown in the towel. Yes, he should have. The man who threw in the towel was right. Because Deontay Wilder was reeling. Deontay Wilder was off his legs. His legs were not beneath him. And every single time, and every round that fight got further, Fury was doling out more and more punishment. You could see the numbers on the StatCast and the live stats go up. And the significant strikes landed were going up. And the percentage of strikes landed per round, Fury was getting more accurate because Wilder was not moving as well. and Wilder was not landing any punches. And the trainer of Deontay Wilder, I'm blanking on his name because I don't really follow boxing, was saying that Wilder's a guy who can land one of those magical boxing punches. Well, when your legs are under you, yes, absolutely. You could be losing the fight all the way up until the 10th, 11th round. It was similar to what happened in that Tyson fight. Like, Tyson still had gas left when he was fighting James Buster Douglas. Deontay Wilder had no gas. There was no chance he was going to be able to really connect on a punch hard enough with how well Fury moves. And all the stuff I said about the fight came into fruition. So when it comes to sports, I'm not just talking football. I'm not just talking baseball. I'm not talking college football. I'm not talking college basketball. I'm talking all the sports, every single sport. If I say something, it's gold. Period. And that's what I proved. So me and the Gypsy King did this together. We proved the world wrong. I know boxing. So now, every time there's a big fight, we're going to do Chris on boxing. And this is, yes, it's an absolute attack on Max Kellerman because he was wrong. As always. So yes, Chris on boxing. Na 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 na. I was right. You guys were wrong. Tyson Fury's the champ. All hail the Gypsy King. Man, so it's a big day for hands. Absolutely big day for hands. You guys don't get it. Well, the NFL Combine is well underway. And to me, I always do an Underwear Olympics episode. Not this year. I'm just not feeling it. I've got football to watch still, the XFL. So this week is the week prospects become legends, not because of what they did on the field, but what they did on another field, Lucas Oil Stadium's field with lasers and cones set up. This isn't real football, but it does show you something. Already, Chase Young is not participating. He is the so-called number 1 pick, number 2 pick. I've seen his workout videos. He's fine. So this is a place where there's microscopic evaluation of every single aspect of a player's physical and mental attributes. So at the Combine, you run your 40, you do your 10-yard, 10, 20, 10 shuttle, you do your cone drill, you do your 3-cone drill, you do your 60-yard shuttles, you do position-oriented drills. You know, you have defensive linemen catching passes, weird receivers running the gauntlet. That's one of my favorite drills to do to this day. It's a lot of fun. And then, you know, so a lot of people have been asking me, like, why does the Combine get a bad rep? And why is the Combine so important? So there's people on both sides of this, you know. Someone's like, well, they've got 4 years of film. Yeah, well, playing those guys, the bottom rung SEC guys, the bottom rung ACC guys are not playing NFL guys. So when Ohio State plays Rutgers and a guy has a career game with 3 sacks, I'm not talking about Chase Young here. I'm just talking in general. This is an example where player A gets 3 sacks against a rival and his stats are great. You know, and the tape in that game's great, you know, but you know, when you watch the key to me when it comes to evaluating a player is when I watch a game, how much do you stand out in the biggest games? You know, how much attention do you draw when you play your best opponents, and how much do you impact the game when the game plans against you? That's what evaluators are thinking. So all those aspects pop off on screen, you know, and you have these receivers who are fast because most Division I athletes that play wide receiver are pretty fast. And you have these defensive linemen who are chasing down running backs, and they just want to see. They want to compare the film to the running backs. So this is a rule I saw. I think Dane Brugler and a lot of scouts utilize this rule. I think Dane Brugler was the one I saw tweet about it before the show. He's the athletics draft guy. They're draft guru. So the professional evaluators understand the 90-10 rule. So 90% of an evaluation is the film of the player. The Combine and Pro Days and anything where you can judge these guys physically, you know, those invites to the facilities, all of that stuff, that 10% is to reflect what's on film. And when you see a missing trait, a missing characteristic, is that missing when it comes to the Combine? Is their 10-yard split apparent with their get off on the defensive line? Is their change of direction equal to their short shuttle? These are all legitimate questions. And when you see them in the underwear Olympics, those are the takeaways you have. These events at the combine, these drills, aren't there to prove people right. People already know what you're capable of on a football field. It's not to prove people wrong. It's to reassure their already withstanding beliefs. Unless you're Al Davis, rest in peace, you're not going to the combine without an already well-intact draft plan. Now, you might add a few players to the depth of your draft plan, but most of the time, it's rare the combine truly changes opinions on draft grades. You have people scouting these players year-round. Spring games to the national title. There are going to be scouts from teams watching the top draft prospects and watching college teams to see if there are other future prospects. It's pretty simple. It's a process that most teams have a lot of money towards, and teams like the Bengals, they do not. So, some teams are better at it than others. Look at the New England Patriots. They have one of the best scouting departments in the business. They're extremely successful at an extremely consistent basis. So, yes, the combine's very important, but it's not as important as some people lead on, and it's more important than other people lead on. To me, the combine is fun. To me, I just appreciate the combine because it is some of the best athletes in the world showing us how athletic they are. Will I watch it? No. Will I stay engaged with the combine on Twitter? Absolutely. I think it's one of those sporting events that you don't really have to watch live. You can sort of take away and just look at the highlights. When an offensive lineman benches 65 reps at 225 pounds, I'm going to watch the video. It's extremely impressive. I will never, ever be able to touch 65 reps at 225 pounds, no matter how much I work at it. It's just not in my cards. I will never be able to jump 12 feet from a broad jump. And I will never, ever, ever run a sub 4.5 40-yard dash. My best time in my life was a 4.63. I was flying that day. All leggings, track spikes, and everything. Flew. Now, why did I say this is a big day for hands? So for quarterbacks, hands are extremely important. We're going to talk about some of the combine aspects, some of the things to watch for, I guess. All right, so some players, I'm not going to name any players because I didn't do any research on it, but I'm just going to tell you some specifics to watch for going into this. So this week, you're going to see hand sizes talked about a lot. Now, Jake Fromm and me have the same hand size, and I believe I have small hands. So what does that mean for NFL evaluators? That he has tiny hands. All right, so I've got the measurements of quarterbacks saved in my Twitter bookmarks, and we are going to go through some of them. So Joe Burrow measured in at a 9. That's exactly the line. That is Jared Goff's size hands. Tua Tagovailoa has 9 and 7/8 inch hands. Justin Herbert, 6'6", has 10-inch hands. Jacob Eason has 9.5 inch hands. Jalen Hurts has 9 3/4 inch hands. Jordan Love has 10.5 inch hands. Huge hands. That's big. Those are big hands. And Jake Fromm has 8 7/8 hands. See, I am in that 8 3/4 range, 8 7/8 range, depending on the day and depending on if I could straighten out my pinky because it's still messed up from a dislocation. On Twitter today, I tweeted that Jordan Love, his combine measurables, almost 6'4", almost 225 pounds, and almost 10.5 inch hand size. He's a good athlete. He has an extremely strong arm. But after this weekend, this is my prediction for the combine. Jordan Love is going to have so many online Twitter evaluators with the biggest boner. I swear to God, you're going to see these guys go full staff over this guy's ability to just have the ball explode off his hands. I'm going to tell you this right now. In 5 years, we're not going to know who Jordan Love is. He's not accurate. unless he gets drafted to Andy Reid, he's not going to be a very good NFL quarterback. There are tons of quarterbacks with extremely strong arms who didn't make it. And if I had to bet on 2 quarterbacks right now, the quarterback I'd bet on to be better than him and have more longevity in his career is Jake Fromm. Little hands, small hands. Jake Fromm, State Farm. That guy, the guy with the widest humor. He's an accurate quarterback. He does all the right things mentally. And if Jordan Love struggles in any of those departments, I told you first. Physically, he's the best physical specimen in the draft. Patrick Mahomes-like physical attributes, but it's the intangibles that make you a great quarterback that I think he's missing. He played at Utah State. He was an under-recruited guy. He's had comparisons to Aaron Rodgers in that regard, but I don't see that in his future. I just don't see him being successful. I think this is one of those ones where draft evaluators are going to just absolutely just get blown away by these physical aspects of his game, and it's just not going to work out to me. He is going to be my bust of the draft. He's going to end up working his way into the first round, and he's going to play, and it's not going to go well. So that's my first prediction of this. My second prediction is Jeffrey Okudah is going to solidify himself as a top 5 pick with his combine workouts. This has been unbelievable to watch, but of all the players who needed to improve in this draft from their status standpoint, Jeffrey Okudah was not one of them, and he has still shown improvement in his draft standing. Brad Kelly, he's a guy, he's a receivers coach at some university, but he does online writing for some pro football websites. He said, I'm watching all this Jeff Okudah film, and it's not very exciting. None of these receivers are catching the football. Jeffrey Okudah is the best defensive back I've seen in, my life at playing corner at the college level. Watching him week in and week out, teams couldn't throw his way. He literally took away a side of the field, and when they did throw his way, it wasn't completed. Period. So that's another prediction I have going into this. I think the guys at LSU are all going to test pretty well. So I think that's a prediction. I think that's a safe one. I think when you have big school guys, they all tend to test well. I'm interested to see some of these guys who are more fringe players, an example, just because he's off the top of my head, Devon Hamilton, he could help his draft stock a lot. Those are the guys. So this is a place where these guys in the middle rounds could move to the 2nd and 3rd or move down to the 6th and the 7th. I think there's so many players in this draft, and this receivers class is loaded. So I just want to see who the best receiver in this draft is from a physical standpoint. I think we're really going to have an opportunity to see that. Is Henry Ruggs fast enough to break it? How many sub 4.3 guys are we going to see this year? We'll see. That's what I'm watching. The offensive linemen, I love watching them run. Who's going to be the fastest offensive lineman? That's something that's fun to watch. Every single year, comedian Brendan Schaub posts a picture of a man running at the combine. His 40 and his penis popping out. And, you obviously don't want to see it, but if it happens, it's going to be good content on the internet, and it's going to blow up. So there's that. Hopefully they didn't count that for him, Just picture being there at the combine. This is your whole life's on the line. You get 2 runs, 2 40-yard dashes, millions of dollars on the line. One of those runs, you get to that 20-yard mark, and your freaking compression shorts give out, and your penis flies out of your pants. Is that really fair to not give him another run? It's not his fault his shorts gave out. Should he have just worn regular shorts? That's a question we all have to ask, I think, on some days. Should I have just worn shorts? I don't know. He might have been. Is an offensive lineman really going to be that much benefited on a 40-yard dash from going all compression? I don't know. Maybe he was feeling really confident in his body that day. I can see it. But really, I think I always have fun with the combine. I'm a sports junkie, so yes, I'm going to watch it. What's next on the docket? Spring training has started. It's officially here. Baseball season is not here, but baseball season is close. It's spring. It's like Groundhog Day for baseball. 4 more weeks. So I'm just going to go through. We're going to rapid fire some predictions for awards in the season. And then I'm going to pick my World Series champion. I'm going to pick one from each league that can do it. And we're going to roll with that the whole year. And that's how I'm going to talk about it. And at the halfway point, we're going to see how my prediction is doing. And we're also going to see if I'm going to change that prediction at the halfway point. All right, so spring training is well underway, and the fans are heroes. So the fans are already the MVP. Banging the trash cans, getting signs taken. Did you guys see that the Astros took signs about the Astros stealing signs? Ironic, right? That's baseball for you. So to get this thing started, we're going to go with the most important award first. I'm going with chalk here in NCAA March Madness terms, and that is the AL MVP, and we're going to go with Mike Trout. I think Mike Trout is the surefire MVP this year. I think it's very rare that an athlete of his caliber gets motivation, but Mike Trout's played one playoff game in his career. Mike Trout's battled injuries in his career and still won MVPs. This guy is the champion of the statistic war. No player has had wins above replacement like him. And the Angels paid him a ton of money and have trouble filling out the roster. If the Angels can figure out pitching, they have a legitimate shot just because of the people they have on the left and the right side of the plate. Like, that is how good their offense can be. That's the capabilities they have. And with Mike Trout leading the way, he is good for so many runs and so many runs batted in. He will be about 35% of their offense, honestly, and that's being generous. That's not even being generous. He might make up for a greater percentage. He is going to be the AL's most valuable player. On the National League side, I was torn between two players. I think Mookie Betts is a legitimate National League MVP contender, but I'm going to go with Christian Yelich on the Milwaukee Brewers. I think he's had a very strong career in Milwaukee. I think as he continues to recover from his injury, I really hope he's going to play because I'm going to feel really dumb. And if he can't play because he got seriously hurt last year, I'm going to go back right to Mookie Betts. So Christian Yelich is a very good baseball player. He is one of those guys. Last year he had 489 at-bats, 161 hits, 97 RBIs, and a 329 average. This year he's going to put up similar stats. I think if he continues to play the way he plays, if he has another 100 RBI year, he keeps hitting home runs, he keeps playing consistently. Last year he had 44 home runs. So I think he's going to get his third MVP. I think he's a very safe bet. 28 games, he missed time last year, still won the MVP. I think he's one of the most underrated stars in sports. I know there's been some controversy surrounding him this offseason, but I still think that's just going to find a way to motivate him even further, and I think it's going to be Mike Trout and Christian Yelich. So, yes, chalk on both. If I had to pick an AL MVP to sort of be a dark horse, it's Francisco Lindor. And if I had to pick an NL MVP to be the dark horse, it is Mookie Betts. So those are the two guys I see doing that. And for reasons, they're great in the field, they're great at the plate, they're extremely vital to their lineups, to their team's success. They're the driving force of their team, and I think that's a big part of this MVP voting. Without them, where would their teams be? And their teams would be way worse off without them. Another NL MVP, I've seen this one going around. This is not a dark horse, but a one I'd like to see. Bryce Harper. I think last year he had a down year. I think you're going to see him come back motivated. I think you could see him hit 280 with like 50 homers and 121 RBIs. Not a great average guy anymore. Never really was. Hits for absurd amounts of power, though, and I think when it comes down to it, power is sexy. The flow is looking good. He is married to an Ohio State alum, so he is married to a winner. And I think the Phillies are going to be a really good team this year. And if he can put together a solid season, I think Bryce Harper legitimately has MVP chances. I do. but I'm still going to go with the guys who do it every year. Mike Trout, Christian Yelich, with runners-up being, we'll go with Francisco Lindor is going to be the runner-up, and I think Mookie Betts is going to be the runner-up in the National League. The AL Cy Young, to me, this award is going to go to Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber last year, I believe, got third place in the voting. When you look at his statistics, he is a very electric pitcher. He pitches to contact very well. And one thing that kept developing over seasons was his ability to get strikeouts. In 2019, he had a 4.9 WAR. He won 15 games, and he had 8 losses. 3 complete games, 2 shutouts, 214 innings pitched, and his ERA was a 3.28. He was a very impressive pitcher, and his second half was better than any other pitchers. If he had the full length of dominance like he did, he got 4th in the voting last year. He was an all-star, and I think of all the pitchers for the Indians that are going to improve and take that next step, he is going to join that list of Cy Young winners. CC Sabathia, Cliff Lee, Corey Kluber. You know, the Indians know how to develop pitchers. I think he's ready to take the next step. Obviously, I think the runners-up in the AL are going to be Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander, 2 very outstanding pitchers in their own right. I'm not a very big Verlander fan. Ask my best friend Chad about that. He knows how much I despise the man. And now he plays for a cheating club, the Astros. So I'm very much against him this year. And now the NL Cy Young. It's going to be Jacob deGrom. I don't care. He's the best pitcher in the sport. If the Mets are any good this year, it's going to be because of their hitters and because Jacob deGrom is finally going to get the offensive help he needs to win Cy Young soundly. Last year, Jacob deGrom pitched in 32 games and won 11 of them, and it took a lot longer than it should have for him to get his first winning decision. So he has a track record of absolutely dominating, and I think when you look at third straight Cy Young awards, he's the type of guy who is capable of that. He's always in the conversation for it. Of his 5 seasons, the only one he wasn't was his 3rd year, and I think this year he's going to win another. I think he's the best pitcher in the sport. I think when you look at guys who can win the Cy Young this year in the NL, I think there's a longer list in the NL than there is in the AL. But I think it's going to be deGrom 1, Hyun-Jin Ryu 2, and Steven Strasburg is going to be 3. Those are my top 3 Cy Young Award winners, but I think deGrom's going to have this by a landslide this year. I think this year is legitimately the year he wins 18 games. This is going to be the year he has the most wins in his career. And I really do thoroughly believe that deGrom is going to win the Cy Young. So these are all predictions that can be changed. If injuries do happen, knock on wood, they don't. I am a big fan of all these guys. Big reason I picked them. And now, AL Rookie of the Year. This one I had to do some research for. So my AL Rookie of the Year, and this is going to hurt a little bit, but he is named Luis Robert. He plays for the White Sox. He is an outfielder. And Robert had a monster 2019. This is according to Roto Baller. Robert had a monster 2019 season while playing at 3 minor league levels. He topped out with 47 games in AAA, so he shouldn't need to return to AAA for more than a month. They're going to do that thing where they get the extra year of arbitration. It's unfair to players. They're working on that with collective bargaining, but this is his stats. He finished last year with 32 home runs, has extremely rare power, makes him an extremely valuable fantasy player. He has an ugly walks to strikeouts ratio, but so do most young power hitters in today's age of baseball. He's going to play right away. Once you get to May, he is going to come out and he's going to hit a lot of home runs. He's going to strike out a lot, but he's going to be a lot of fun. He's a good athlete. He's powerful as a hitter, and if he get those walks up and be a patient batter, he's going to be great. And my second Rookie of the Year, and this one is, these are both apparently easy choices in the baseball community, but I'm going to go with the easy choices here. Gavin Lux, shortstop for the Dodgers. Lux, he split time at second base and shortstop. Corey Seager hasn't been very healthy, so we're going to see how that all plays out. I know the Dodgers have been talking about trading him a lot of times. I don't really think this awards for pitchers unless you're a very special pitcher. So I'm going with 2 position players. In the NL, Gavin Lux. He was overly aggressive in the majors. He played last year a lot. He had a 6 walk to 23 ratio. And they're predicting he's a 20 to 25 homer guy. He's going to have a handful of steals. He's a very good average hitter, or hitter for average. I need to stop saying average hitter. I need to get back to saying hitter for average, because when you say that backwards, it's not good. So other guys you can watch out for, I'm just going to read it off their list because it's a great list. You know, you've got Wander Franco on the Rays. He's going to join the Rays in July, possibly in May or June, depending on how fast he develops. The Jays have a great pitcher coming up in Nate Pearson. They're going to have a lot of young guys in Kevon Biggio, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and a lot of these guys are making their real debuts as full-time MLBers. Another outfielder for the Angels is Joe Adele. This guy can be the legitimate help that Mike Trout needs, and if they can develop him early in the year and get that energy from a young guy into the outfield, he can pay serious dividends long term. And then this is a very interesting player, Brendan McKay. He would not be a rookie this year if he didn't pitch one more inning. He is a two-way player. He has played first base and pitcher. A lot of people are saying he's going to switch to pitcher, and he's a power lefty. He's got great control, but as with many young pitchers, his command isn't always a sure thing. He's got a very good K to ball ratio in his 49 innings pitched, which is the opposite of what you want for hitters. He's got 56 strikeouts to 16 walks, which just, again, goes to show you the control. All great lefties are even greater when they can control their power pitches and their breaking pitches. And I think Brendan McKay can develop into that guy. And if I had to pick a pitcher to win the AL Rookie of the Year, it's for sure McKay. I think when you look at what scouts around the league are saying about him, what like guys like Mr. Law for ESPN and MLB.com talk about, they talk about just how natural he is as a left-handed power pitcher. So that's what we're talking about. So now that my predictions are done, it is time to get to another prediction I made. I said this year the Sixers were probably not going to be a championship team. I thought their roster didn't get better when Jimmy Butler left, and I'm right. The 76ers are not going to be playing for a title this year. When you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, they are very much an average middle-of-the-road basketball team right now. For the top of the pack, you know, we'll go with some basic team stats right here. I mean, you look at them, they haven't been the most efficient three-point shooting team. You know, you look at the ranks, they have trouble spreading the floor because of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They do not work well together all the time. One of their positives is they're a great transition team, and when Ben Simmons can get out on the floor and run, he is almost an unstoppable player. Defensively, I think is where they make up for a lot of those problems on the offensive side of the ball, but they don't play defense consistent enough. And that's why when you look at the NBA standings, the 76ers are in 5th place. The 76ers are just, they've been so average this year. You know, it says a lot that Jimmy Butler left to a Heat team that was very young and has them in a better place. I think there's a lot of continuity issues with the 76ers. It's gotten so bad that Joel Embiid had to call himself out on Twitter. And then Jimmy Butler responded, "I know a place where villains are loved." We get it, Jimmy. You don't want to be liked. It's all right. We like you anyways. You're an edgy basketball player. I know it drives you, but that's all right. So why can't these 76ers figure it out? What is wrong with them? This is a conversation I want to have with a real basketball guy. So I'm going to have it with myself because I'm a real basketball guy. I really legitimately think with the Sixers roster, adding Al Horford to me didn't make any sense. You know, you look at the 76ers and they're already a team that has a pretty defined rotation with the big men. I think when you look at their roster, it's they're confused on which route they want to go with who they think the franchise centerpiece is. Is it Joel Embiid? Is it Ben Simmons? That's a legitimate question. So you look at Embiid, 22 and 12. He's having a great year statistically. He's only playing 30 minutes a night. He really has never been a great player when it comes to stamina. Tobias Harris he's always been a pleasant surprise. It's been crazy to me that he hasn't found a more permanent home, and I think he has, obviously, with that extension in Philadelphia, but leading up to that, it felt like, how are teams not utilizing this guy's versatility? Josh Richardson's pretty cash outside, as they say. Mike Scott's very inconsistent, but he can hit a three. Glenn Robinson III has never really found his footing in the league, and Ben Simmons has still not developed a jump shot. And he's really not averaging great stats because teams are able to sort of limit what he's doing because they know he's not confident in taking jumpers. So right now, the better player is Joel Embiid, but the biggest problem with Joel Embiid is he gets overconfident. This is where you have two roads diverging. You don't have two roads converging. They're getting further apart from each other, and they're not developing together. They're developing into different entities, and that's not going to work long term. The 76ers are not a good basketball team because of it. When you look at the teams they're competing against, they have very strong structures. Look at the Celtics. Everyone knows the brains behind the operation is Brad Stevens. But they have let their young players develop. The Jason Tatums, the Jaylen Browns, and now they're legitimate, versatile offensive threats and weapons. They can dribble, they can attack the basket. They're passing the ball a lot better now. And they're hitting shots off the dribble, and they don't need the creation from others to help them. Marcus Smart's three-point revelation, you look at his stats right now, it's like, where did this guy come from? He's shooting 35% from three. I never thought I'd see the day, honestly. You know, you look at Gordon Hayward, he's sort of finding his way into this team. When you look at the stats of Gordon Hayward, he's averaging 17 points a game, 4 assists, he's very consistent. That's the thing, is there's a legitimate pecking order on this team now. Kemba Walker's the veteran, but Kemba Walker's a very team-first player. Jason Tatum, he's averaging 22 per game, and it's not a forced 22. He's shooting a pretty good percentage, 44% from the field, 38% with a much higher usage rate. His efficient field goal has not dropped an ounce, and he's got a 20 on the player efficiency rating. So he's a very good basketball player. The other guy we got to talk about is Jaylen Brown. You know, you compare this team directly to the 76ers, and you're like, how are these names better than those guys, you know? Jaylen Brown is averaging 20 points per game. This is a team that naturally has defined itself, and they know who they are, and that's the difference. They've developed together. Their roads have diverged, and now they're becoming that team that people believe they can be. Are they there? Are they a championship contender yet? You know, you never know in the Eastern Conference. But I don't think they're going to beat the Western Conference champion. I really don't. But that doesn't mean that they're not a good team. I think there's a better team in the Milwaukee Bucks. And when you compare, this is another comparison. I'm comparing them to the 76ers. Giannis is a definitive star. You know what the Bucks decided? They decided that they're going to build this team around Giannis Antetokounmpo. Great decision. He's a Greek freak. He's unbelievable. And he's developing into an even better player. Giannis this year has really set an even higher standard for himself than last year. Averaging 30 points and 13 rebounds. He's increased his assist tenfold. He's at 5 assists per game now. Like, a lot of people didn't know if that was a legitimate possibility these last couple of years. And he's done it back-to-back years while also increasing his points per game total. That is insane. I guess last year he averaged... No, that's minutes per game. Where the heck is the stat? Oh, points. Here we go. Yeah, he's up 3 points per game this year. Like, wild, you know? It's just Giannis is a very talented basketball player, and you look at the roster around him. They went out and got Robin Lopez. They have Brooke Lopez, who's one of the best stretch fives in the league. Chris Middleton's a legitimate wingman. Eric Bledsoe's a top-tier starting point guard in the league. Dante DiVincenzo is awesome off the bench. He's a versatile defender. Remember him from Villanova, awesome player. Ersan Ilyasova, stretch four. Wesley Matthews can defend. Four positions, so can Pat Connaughton, and Kyle Korver is obviously one of the best shooters the game's ever seen. They have veterans, they have youth, they are good defensively, they're good offensively. When you look at their team, it's just a very well-rounded team. They have a direction. The Raptors don't have a legitimate star. No offense to Pascal Siakam or Kyle Lowry. They're a very good, deep team. They're good defensively. They have good offensive players in Kyle Lowry, Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Chris Boucher, all very solid players. Norman Powell's a good player, but none of them would be great on their own. And that says a lot. And now, the team that really should bother the 76ers. Listen to this team, and you tell me how this team should be better than the 76ers with all that talent. Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, Goran Dragic, Udonis Haslem still playing basketball, Myers Leonard, Chris Silva, Derek Jones Jr., Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, Kelly Olynyk. This team should not be better than the 76ers. I'm just going to say that right now. You have two legitimate all-NBA players in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And you're worse than the Miami Heat. And you're probably going to finish worse than the Pacers. You're going to be the 6th seed. That's going to happen. All right. The 76ers are, to me, closer to the Nets and the Magic than they are to the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. And I'm sorry, 76ers fans, but that's the truth. Prove me wrong. Win some playoff series. Beat these teams I think are better than you, and you'll finally earn my respect. But you guys are going the opposite way. The process was something I was so excited about, and this year with the drama, with the tweeting, with the girlfriends, with the talking to Rihanna, Joel Embiid, she doesn't like you. Play basketball. A few years ago, Joel Embiid was wearing Uggs and shooting around. I get it, dude. You want to seem like you're relaxed. You want to seem like a fun guy. But that's not how you do it. And that's why the Sixers can't figure it out. It's because they wear Uggs to shoot around. You get it? They don't take it serious. They are more worried about becoming internet stars, and that is where this problem comes. Jason Tatum tweets about his workouts. Jaylen Brown, I don't even remember the last time I saw Jaylen Brown tweet. Gordon Hayward twitches. Yes, great. But, when it comes to basketball, it seems like they're all in all the time. When I look at the 76ers, it doesn't feel that way. And I just know they're not going to figure it out. All right, so to close out the show, we're going to do news in sports. Over the weekend, a Zamboni driver named David Ayer became an emergency backup goalkeeper and won the game for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, when you look at the NHL standings, the Carolina Hurricanes are in a place where they're really, really in the thick of a playoff race. They're a young team. They're a fun team. And when you look at them, they're in the second wild card slot, which means they do make the playoffs if they continue down this road. They're one game in front of my Jackets, but this is where the story gets crazy. David Ayers filled in because of injuries. And, this is one of the craziest things in hockey. And I didn't know this was a real thing. I actually then realized that I had a conversation with my mom's longtime boyfriend calling about emergency goalkeepers. And this has happened before. But overnight, this guy became a sensation. he is a guy who plays in rec leagues around. He's a guy who made it up all the way to a minor league hockey contract. He's a guy who had dreams of playing in the NHL, and he became a Zamboni driver for the local team. So this story starts and ends with David Ayers as an emergency goalkeeper. He is the driver for AHL's Toronto Marlies and the emergency backup keeper for both teams on Saturday night. So backup keepers are at the game to fill in for both teams if both the goalies get hurt. So Hurricanes goalies Peter Mrazek and James Reimer had to exit the game due to injury. And then came the shot. Mr. Dave Ayers saved 8 out of 10 shots that he faced, while also recording a shot on goal of his own. The fact that an emergency goalie had to enter the game is fascinating. But he legitimately played well. He won the game. He got a win. He made 8 saves. He saved 1, and it wasn't even rebounded. He caught it. He did the legs thing. 10 shots on goal, man, that's crazy. I don't know how the Toronto Maple Leafs were not just peppering the goal. He lived his dream, and he won the game. He was the number one star of the night. That's a hockey thing. And that was the best story I've seen at all. And you've probably heard him on the radio this week. And I reached out to him, and yes, he did not come on the show today. But think about it. He works at the arena. The Maple Leafs are also in a very, very tight playoff race. And he beat them. Absolutely absurd, right? You look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, they are in third in the Atlantic Division, and when you look at division standings, that means they're right in front of Carolina, if I remember. Nope, they are in the other division. Okay, well, either way, the wild card spots go to both divisions, and the Carolina Hurricanes did something magnificent. Absolutely crazy. If you guys did not see this, on Sunday, the Lakers played the Celtics. The Celtics players honored Kobe Bryant and by wearing purple wristbands on the forearm like Kobe Bryant did with the number 8 or 24 on them. It was actually a really nice tribute the day before to 24, which we'll get to close out the show. But in this game, Bill Russell showed up in a Lakers jersey, a Kobe Bryant jersey, and broke the barrier of the colors of the rivalry. I know this isn't Martin Luther King stuff, but it was pretty powerful to see the greatest figure of the organization. It's either Bill Russell or Larry Bird, and see him wear a Lakers jersey, which is crazy enough. And that is the type of respect that legends get, and it just showed the power of the sport, and it sort of goes back to the miracles I talked about at the beginning. And in this game, it was a hard-fought game, and this was my favorite play LeBron's made in like 2 years. LeBron was backing down Jason Tatum, and he took 2 steps, popped him real good. Jaylen Brown held his ground, and LeBron sort of started smirking because he knew he had him. And he hit that little shoulder hop and then turned around and hit a fadeaway in Jaylen Brown's face to give him the lead and to win the game with about 30 seconds left. It was an insanely clutch shot, so to all my LeBron haters who say he's not clutch, there's another game winner for you. Add to the statistics, he is one of the most clutch performers in sports history. The Celtics, they lost a close game against LeBron. They're used to that, so they'll get over it. And I think I want to hit on what this means for the NBA. When you look at Basketball Reference and their stats and you see what LeBron James is doing this year, it feels like LeBron hasn't even really left second gear. It's a very legitimate aspect of sports that LeBron James has a playoff mode. So This year, he's averaging 25 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 10 assists. His assist average is up 3 for what his career usually entails. And, Anthony Davis is averaging more points, but LeBron's assist total kind of makes up for that. He's responsible for about 31 points per game. His efficient field goal percentage is as high as usual. His three-point percentage is typical. And this might be the first year in a while he finishes under 50% from the floor, but he's taking more threes. He's shooting better from three. His player efficiency ratings as high as always. He's added 8 win shares to his career, which is a lot. And, it's unbelievable to watch him. And when you look at his running mate this year, Anthony Marshawn Davis, he's averaging 26.8 with 9 rebounds per game on 51% shooting and 32% from three. And he's getting hot from three. Every time I've watched the Lakers, Anthony Davis is hitting big threes. So for the rest of the NBA, the Lakers have a 5.5 game lead over the next in line. And it's not going to go well for the rest of the league come playoff time. I thoroughly believe it. Oh, 5 games still. Okay, so the Nuggets ended up winning that night. Regardless, 5-game lead, 27 to go. It's looking good for the Lakers. I think it's time to start thinking about load management a little, but you want to keep these players engaged, keep them ready to roll. I think the older players, LeBron, I think Anthony Davis, are both capable of maintaining their ability to play basketball and rest a little bit. I think it's time. I think the NBA is not ready. I think LeBron still has that gear. You've seen it a couple times. You haven't really needed it as much because Anthony Davis also has that gear. And I think the Lakers as a team are starting to come together, and it's starting to become a well-meshed machine. To close out this show today, I just want to show some respect to Kobe and Gianna Bryant and all 8 of the victims in the 8 or 9 of the victims in the helicopter crash one more time. Today was the day they had day of remembrance for Kobe Bryant and Gianna at Staples Center. They were put to rest around a week ago in a private ceremony, and this was an opportunity for so many people to get that closure that comes with it. Kobe Bryant's legacy is survived by the rest of his family, his wife Vanessa, his 2 other daughters, and reading about the stories of Gianna and who she was becoming, it's really sad to lose those lives. And continuing with the Altobelli family and the other families involved, it was a serious tragedy. And on this day of remembrance, 2/24, this is probably going to be Kobe Day. I tweeted that a while ago. It is just a great day to just tell the people you love how much you appreciate them, and text those friends you might not have talked to for a little bit and just tell them that you miss them. And it's one of those things where life is truly short, and Kobe would want you to live it with that Mamba mentality, and that's why you stay organized, you get your work done, and you grind until you're successful, because that's what it takes. So on today's show, we covered a lot of sports topic. It's one of my longer shows in a while. Very excited about that. A lot of conversation happened. We talked about miracles. We talked about baseball. We talked about how I'm the best boxing expert to ever grace the planet Earth. And it's a big day for hands. Mine are as big as Jake Fromm's. No need to brag. Thank you all for listening. This is your host, Chris Ferreni, signing off. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast.